The first thing I noticed in the basement wasn't the broken furnace. It was the silence. Not the normal kind of silence you expect underground, but the heavy kind, the type that feels like it's holding its breath. I stood there with a wrench in my hand, staring at the old metal pipes while the dim yellow light above flickered slightly. For a moment, I had the strange feeling that this simple repair job was about to turn into something much bigger than fixing a furnace. I didn't know it yet, but the question my neighbor was about to ask would change both of our lives. Before we continue, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and the power of helping someone when they need it most, take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who believes in good people, and subscribe to the channel. And in the comments, tell us where you're watching from. We love hearing from you. My name is Nathan, and at the time this happened, I was 32 years old, working as a freelance handyman in a quiet neighborhood in Columbus, Ohio. Life hadn't exactly gone the way I had planned. A few years earlier, I had lost my job at a construction company after the business shut down unexpectedly. My marriage didn't survive the financial stress, and eventually I found myself living alone in a small rented house, fixing whatever people in the neighborhood needed to keep the bills paid. It wasn't the life I once imagined, but it was honest work. The call from my neighbor came on a cold Thursday morning in late October. Her name was Rebecca. She had moved into the house next door about 6 months earlier, but we had barely spoken. I knew she lived there with her young son, and that was about it. When she knocked on my door that morning, she looked exhausted. Her brown hair was tied loosely back, and there were dark circles under her eyes that suggested she hadn't slept much in a long time. She explained that her furnace had stopped working overnight, and the basement had started flooding slightly from a leaking pipe. I told her I'd take a look. That's how I ended up standing in that basement. The place was older than the rest of the house, with concrete walls and the faint smell of damp wood. Boxes were stacked along one side, and a small washer and dryer sat quietly in the corner. I crouched near the furnace, inspecting the pipes and valves, trying to figure out why the system had stopped running. Above me, I could hear faint footsteps from the floor upstairs. After about 20 minutes, I realized the issue wasn't too serious. A worn-out valve and a loose pipe connection had caused the leak, which had eventually shut the furnace down as a safety precaution. It was a simple fix, maybe an hour of work, but while I was tightening one of the fittings, I heard the basement door creak open. Rebecca slowly walked down the wooden steps. She stopped halfway down, watching me for a moment before stepping onto the concrete floor. Even in the dim light, I could see that she looked nervous. I wiped my hands on a cloth and told her the furnace would be fine soon. She nodded, but didn't respond right away. Instead, she stood there quietly, as if she were trying to decide whether or not to say something important. Then she asked a question that caught me completely off guard. She asked if I ever felt like life had quietly fallen apart without anyone noticing. At first, I didn't know what to say. It wasn't the kind of question you expect to hear while fixing a pipe in someone's basement, but the way she said it softly, almost like she was afraid of her own words, made it impossible to ignore. I set the wrench down and looked at her, and for the first time, I really saw the weight she had been carrying. She told me she had moved to the neighborhood after her husband passed away the year before. A sudden heart condition had taken him without warning. One day he was healthy, the next day he was gone. Since then, she had been trying to raise her 6-year-old son Mason by herself. She had taken 2 jobs just to keep the house. Most nights she barely slept. And lately the bills had been piling up faster than she could handle them. The furnace breaking was just the latest problem. But the real reason she came down to the basement wasn't the furnace. It was the loneliness. She admitted that she felt like she was slowly disappearing inside her own life. Every day was just survival, working, paying bills, caring for her son, trying not to break down in front of him. She said sometimes she wondered if anyone even noticed how hard she was trying. Standing there in that cold basement, I realized something painful. I did understand exactly what she meant. Because after my divorce and losing my job, I had spent years feeling invisible too. 2 people living 10 feet apart, both struggling in silence. And neither of us had noticed. I finished repairing the pipe and restarted the furnace a little while later. Warm air slowly began to move through the vents, filling the basement with a soft humming sound. but something else had changed too. Before I left, I told Rebecca that if she ever needed help with repairs around the house, she didn't have to worry about the cost right away. Neighbors should help neighbors. She tried to protest, but I insisted. That small moment started something unexpected. Over the next few weeks, I occasionally helped fix things around her house: a broken cabinet hinge, a leaking faucet, a loose fence in the backyard where Mason liked to play. In return, Rebecca sometimes sent over homemade meals when she cooked too much. Little by little, the silence between our houses disappeared. Mason began stopping by after school to watch me work in the garage. He was curious about everything: tools, engines, how things were built. And for the first time in years, my house didn't feel so empty. Months passed, winter arrived. And somehow, without either of us planning it, the three of us started to feel like a small team trying to rebuild life together. Rebecca began smiling more often. Mason started bringing home better grades from school, and I realized that helping them had quietly helped me too. Sometimes the things we think we're fixing for someone else are actually repairing parts of ourselves. One evening in early spring, almost 5 months after that first day in the basement, Rebecca knocked on my door again. But this time she wasn't worried about a furnace or a leak. She simply handed me a small plate of cookies and thanked me for never pretending her struggles didn't exist. She said that question she asked me in the basement that day had been the moment she stopped feeling invisible, because someone had listened, and sometimes being heard is the first step toward healing. Before we finish this story, I want to ask you something important. If this story touched your heart even a little, please like the video, share it with someone who believes kindness still exists in the world, and subscribe to the channel so more people can hear stories like this. And here's a special request. In the comments, write the word hope, because sometimes hope starts in the most unexpected places: a quiet basement, a broken furnace, and one honest question between two strangers. Life didn't magically become perfect for us after that day. Bills still came, hard days still happened, but the difference was that none of us were facing them alone anymore. And sometimes, that's the miracle people really need. A reminder that even when life feels silent and heavy, there might be someone nearby who understands exactly what you're going through. All it takes is one moment of courage and one simple question.